Welcome back to the Friday Show presented by Woodbine Racetrack. I'm Ray Paulick here with Natalie Voss, editor-in-chief of the Paulick Report. This weekend at Woodbine, we've got the rhyming stakes, the marine stakes, and the Celine stakes. A little rhyming racing going on. The Celine is a prep for the Woodbine Oaks. That's to be run on August 15th. And the Marine Stakes is a prep for 3-year-olds. This is an open 3-year-old race, but it's a lot of Canadian breds are in the race who will be going on to the Queen's Plate to be run this year on September 12th, 1 week after the Kentucky Derby. Boy, it's weird to say that, isn't it? The Kentucky Derby in September and the Queen's Plate in September. But this weekend, some big races at Woodbine. Natalie, I thought this week we'd talk about solving problems in the industry.
Well, we've got a good 7 to 10 minutes, so I think we can probably take care of all of them.
All right. Well, let's break this down into two things. There's problems that we can't solve. There are what I think I would call unsolvable problems that are going to be talked about every year, maybe at the Jockey Club roundtable and whatever. And then there's issues that there's 60-40, 60% see it one way, 40 the other way. But there's also a few things I think that everybody can agree on. And for the life of me, I don't understand why these things aren't being done universally across the industry. And I'll go first because this is a real rant with me. And that is communication from the stewards to the public, the people who are betting on the races. The stewards sometimes just pretend like the public doesn't exist. An example recently at Philadelphia, at Parks at Philadelphia, when there was an incident down the stretch of one jockey jostling another. It looked like he was trying to knock the guy off the horse. I don't really know what happened because the stewards never gave any kind of an explanation. They don't publish stewards' minutes. They don't. There's nothing on the PA system after the race as far as this is what the stewards decided. But it's such a simple thing. If they would look at Hong Kong and see the kinds of incident reports the stewards put out on a daily basis when they race at Hong Kong, those reports are way more detailed than we need. We just need something. And there's a lot of places, Pennsylvania being a prime example, where there's no communication at all from the stewards to the betting public. Now, some places do those. The stewards at NYRA during Saratoga put out incident reports. California Horse Racing Board puts out minutes. I think Delaware does it, maybe a couple other places. But this is ridiculous. This is something that should be done everywhere.
I mean, it's 2020. We've had the internet for a while now. It doesn't seem like it should be too challenging to get these things communicated. And you know what else in the same vein just perplexes me as to why we haven't figured it out is jockey rulings. We have a wonderful centralized database for rulings against trainers where you can go in and type the trainer's name in and see whether they've had medication violations or paperwork sort of violations over the course of their career. It's not always up to date. It depends on the reporting jurisdiction, how quickly they get that information in. But there's no component for jockeys. I know, Ray, you were reporting on a story yesterday trying to find out the history of a particular jockey. Had he had similar types of violation problems before? I've been in the same situation, and you just sort of have to Google and pray. And it just seems like in 2020 we should be able to do a little bit better than that.
Yeah, on the trainer violations, you're right. There's some jurisdictions don't put them out there. Like Florida, you can't find Florida rulings without go. You can find them on the FloриdaLicense.com website. But there should be a central place where everything is out there, including rulings against jockeys. I mean, it seems like kind of a no-brainer. And, to have a database for that stuff shouldn't be that difficult. Whether it's Equibase, whether it's the Jockey Club, whether it's the Association of Racing Commissioners International, the NTRA, somebody, at one of these meetings that you have so many of, now you're doing by Zoom, just come up with a solution. It's not that difficult.
People want this information. There's a demand out there for it from bettors, from fans, and I think journalists are a pretty small piece of the pie, but we would also like to have reliable, up-to-date information. It seems like something that, of all the fixes we have, that could be one of the easier ones.
Yeah, I mean, and who's against it? Is there anybody that would be against it? Maybe the jockeys don't want to have their records put out there, but I'm sorry, you're licensed to ride in parimutuel racing. But yeah, it's just ridiculous. It's like, why? Who would be against putting stewards' explanations out there? The stewards, maybe it's because they don't want to work any more than they have to. I don't know, but these are things that they just need to do them and move on to the more difficult problems.
Right.
All right, what about you've got another one, don't you?
I have one that just absolutely drives me crazy. So when I reported on a story of a horse that was later found to have had equine herpes virus in Louisiana, I believe this was about 3 or 4 years ago, there was quite a big to do trying to figure out where this possibly exposed horse had gone when he left the receiving barn. I believe at Fairgrounds, it may have been one of the other tracks. Um, and the part of the reason they didn't immediately know that is because you're not required when you bring a horse in and out, sometimes it's just one or the other, to fill out paperwork and have identities verified of the horses on your truck. I started asking around about this because I thought, is this just, one track's security issue? But in fact, it seems to sort of be an issue everywhere that you might have a track who records them coming in but not going out. And I can't figure that one out other than security guards maybe don't want to be tasked with getting into a van to flip a horse's lip to make sure they match their paperwork. But I'm sorry, I mean, that's an integrity issue because you don't want somebody taking horses out of the track property 24 hours before a race, being gone for a couple hours and bringing them back. You have no idea what might have taken place during that time. If you have an infectious disease issue, you need to know where horses went and when they left. And if you're dealing with an anti-slaughter policy violation, you really should know when that horse left, who was on the truck with the horse as far as other horses, or who was driving the truck. Is this a trailer that comes in and out, regularly comes in empty and leaves full, so that you can enforce your policies? It just does not seem like this should be a challenging thing.
Yeah, and this is one that should be getting easier over the next few years as microchipping of horses becomes mandatory. Um, the gate personnel will no longer have to go in and actually look at a lip tattoo, which I don't know any track. I'm sure there are some where they actually do that, but most of them just give them the wave. They look, they maybe they'll report who the horses are and they'll write it down. But if somebody's doing something nefarious, and I know, that hardly ever happens in horse racing, but if somebody's taking a horse out a day before a race to shockwave it or to put it into a hyperbaric chamber, as happened a few years ago with a very prominent filly in Southern California, and the trainer or somebody affiliated with the trainer gave a false name. There's only one way to check it, and that's to look at the lip tattoo. Soon we'll have the microchips so they can do it much easier.
Right, and I mean, I think it's often, or it can be a case of the guy driving the van knows that he needs to have a certain number of Coggins forms to match how many horses he's got in the van. But regardless of whether he's trying to hide the identity, I think that quite a few times that paperwork doesn't actually match the horse, which is also, sort of an issue of state law because there's a reason that you have those Coggins forms when you're traveling with a horse interstate. So it seems like a lot of issues could sort of be solved by just a little bit more vigilance.
Yeah, and I get it when you don't have enough people working the gate and there's a van full of horses. It takes a little time and there might be some impatience, but still it's an important thing. There are people who will do things nefariously, and unfortunately that makes it bad for everybody else. I don't like standing in line to get on an airplane at a security check, but we have to do that because some nut with a bomb in his tennis shoe made life miserable for the whole country. So, as long as we have people that are willing to be dishonest and cheat, the rest of us kind of have to pay a price, and that's just too bad.
Well, and I would think if you were bringing a horse in to race yourself and you weren't up to anything, you would want everyone to be checked because you wouldn't want to have to go up against somebody who might have taken that horse out and shockwaved it and brought it back. So,
Well, anyways, I'm glad we took care of these problems this week, and I think maybe next week we'll tackle some of the bigger ones.
we could just do one a week, and I think by the end of August we could have just like fixed the whole business. It's very achievable. So what do we want to know, readers out there? What do you think are some of the simple fixes? Mind you, simple is the key word here because there's a lot of complicated problems in racing. But tell us in the comments, what do you think are a few simple problems, simple solutions that racing could enact to make itself better?
All right. Well, we'll see you next week and look for some of those suggestions.